February's winter storm left College Station with a hefty tab, why residents won't have to pay it. And Cecily Aguilar indicted on 11 new charges, what they are coming up. Here in Texas, not only was the pandemic causing setbacks, but so did the winter storm, College Station having to pay over $45 million for power over charges.
It's one disaster on top of another, and everybody in the community, we live here too, and everybody in the community is already having to deal with so much.
The $300 million proposed budget plan will go toward infrastructure, public safety, and recovering financially. The surviving suspect in the disappearance and murder of Army Specialist Vanessa Guillen has now been indicted on 11 new charges. The charges include accessory after the fact, destruction of records in a federal case, conspiracy to tamper with documents, and issuing false statements. On Tuesday, Vanessa Guillen's family met with Army leaders in Houston to discuss the investigation. Both the family attorney and Representative Sylvia Garcia say justice has not been served because no one has been removed from the Army.
Justice for Vanessa would be getting rid of those people who harmed her, who harassed her, who assaulted her. Those persons are still in the Army, and that's not acceptable.
The criminal investigation is still ongoing. Meanwhile, arrest warrants are out for those House Democrats who didn't report to the Capitol without a legitimate excuse. Now, it's worth noting that not every Texas House Democrat left the state. The Texas Tribune saying Representatives Ryan Guillen of Rio Grande City, Tracy King of Batesville, Eddie Morales Jr. of Eagle Pass, and John Turner of Dallas all stayed behind. Now let's get a check on your Wednesday forecast with meteorologist Josh Johns.
Yeah, and things are quiet right now, but we'll have to watch for the chance for a shower or thunderstorm later on this afternoon. Already you can see showers trying to bubble up out in Burleson County. Some of these clouds starting to build up, and as we're heating up that atmosphere, we'll see a few more of these start to develop. It's all thanks to the sea breeze trying to work on in. That's where showers and thunderstorms are most numerous right now down along the Gulf Coast, and that'll be pivoting north as we go into the afternoon. So we'll have about a 20 to 30% chance going through the rest of the afternoon. You'll want that umbrella handy. Temperatures right now, though, lower 80s, upper 80s is what it feels like, if not low 90s. And winds are on the calm side at this time, but they'll pick up out of the southeast later on this afternoon. That's what will usher in that chance of showers and thunderstorms. Future Track taking you through time here shows you that chance increasing after around lunchtime. Again, these will be isolated in nature for the most part, but they could produce some heavy rain, some gusty winds, and a little bit of lightning as they roll on through. By evening, things should really be winding down, and overnight will be on the quiet side. Tomorrow, though, we do it again in the afternoon. I think the better chance, though, will be found east of Highway 6. And once again, some of those could have some heavy rain and some gusty winds, but overall, severe threat is low. That is the good news. Now, as we continue through the rest of the week on into the weekend, our high pressure that really needs to be established just won't be, and so we'll keep kind of this murky kind of atmosphere in place with the potential for these showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon each and every day through the weekend. A cold front tries to come in later on next week, though, and that's what will raise our rain chances once again and also bring us a cool down, knocking our temperatures back down below normal by the time we head towards the start of the new week. Today, highs get into the lower 90s. That's still below normal, though. Normal's 95. We're calling for 92 in Bryan College Station. As you look at that 10-day forecast, we'll call for 91 tomorrow, 20% chance of rain for your Thursday, 30% chance Friday, and a 20% chance Saturday and Sunday. Once we get into next week, there's where those higher rain chances are. And notice those temperatures going from the mid-90s back down into the low 90s as we continue with this weird July pattern that just won't let the heat get back to us.
The Budget Committee has come to an agreement.
Today, President Joe Biden will meet with Senate Democrats to talk about their new infrastructure proposal. The deal calls for spending $3.5 trillion over the next decade for climate change, health care, and family service programs.
We are very proud of this plan. We know we have a long road to go. We're going to get this done for the sake of making average Americans' lives a whole lot better.
Senators continue to work on another measure that would spend around $1 trillion on roads, water systems, and other infrastructure projects. The budget resolution allows Democrats to approve the deal with a simple majority rather than needing at least 10 Republicans to support it. The proposal did not give clear details about how it would be paid for. The widespread protests in Cuba and in some cities across the U.S. are prompting President Biden to examine the United States' stance with Cuba.
We call on the government of Cuba to refrain from violence or attempts to silence the voice of the people of Cuba.
For days, massive anti-government demonstrations erupted across Cuba. Among the most recent reasons the Cuban people are demanding change are inflation and their ability to get COVID-19 vaccinations. According to anti-government activists, more than 100 people have been arrested or are missing following the protests. The Washington National Monument reopens to the public today, but there will be some restrictions in place. All visitors must buy a ticket in advance. Face masks will be required for all guests over the age of 2, whether they are vaccinated or not. The Washington Monument closed in March of 2020 due to the pandemic. Britney Spears has another hearing over her conservatorship battle today. The pop singer is expected to call into the hearing just like she did for a hearing 3 weeks ago. The judge is expected to consider Spears' request for a new attorney. At the last hearing, Spears described the 13-year conservatorship as abusive. It allows conservators, including her father, to control her estimated $60 million estate.
At a time when wildfires in the United States are at their worst, there are fewer firefighters to try and stop them in their tracks. The number of hotshot crews, the teams who go to the front lines of wildfires in our country, are dwindling as many parts of the country experience unprecedented heat and drought. If we peel back the curtain in an effort to be completely transparent,
as far as we go to the federal firefighters, we got a problem.
Chuck Shealy was the only person who agreed to do an interview with us for this story. We'll let him tell you why.
I tell you, everybody is terrified nowadays to speak to the press. That's probably the reason you can't get any smoke jumper to talk to you, because they have to go through the public information officer.
A man who enveloped himself in a curtain of smoke for 34 years cutting fire lines. He now works as the vice president of the National Smoke Jumper Association in an effort to peel back the curtain on why fewer men and women, many of them young, are joining his former profession.
It's tough to hire people now because you could go to the local McDonald's and make $15 an hour, or you could jump out of an airplane and make $15 an hour plus a little overtime.
According to Chuck, the wage gap between federal hotshots, many of whom are employed by the U.S. Forest Service, and private entities is massive. In an email, the U.S. Forest Service told us the pay for federal hotshots is about half of what it is at the state level. A CNN analysis of the pay structure digs deeper, showing that discrepancy in California, our country's most prone state to wildfires, is in the range of $38,000 per year.
3 years ago or 4 years ago, I was at a meeting and the head of the smoke jumpers was there, and he said that we're 45 positions short this year. And I said, why? He gave me a list of 13 reasons why.
Lack of competitive wage, lack of recruiting, location, they were all on there as wildfires are only intensifying in size and damage.
Who at 18, 19, 20 years old can afford at these wages? In other words, we've lost the local hiring ability. And this is a screwed up situation in my estimation.
With the national preparedness level for wildfires currently at a 4, one stage below its highest level, the problem is developing into what Chuck would describe as a crisis.
You got to get off your butt and you got to go out and get people. You can't sit and wait for them to come to you. Otherwise, you're not going to have a team.
With the peak wildfire months of July and August just getting underway. I'm Dan Grossman.
Standardized tests, they're a hot debate. Some consider them a metric for the quality of teaching, while others, like Jeff Wensing, the vice president for the Ohio Education Association, disagree.
You know, we don't believe that a one-day, one-point-in-time test is an indicator of all the great work going on in your classroom.
Regardless of one's stance, they're still being given each and every year in classrooms across the U.S., with a lot of stock being put into the results. And one Akron professor says if we pay teachers just 1% more, those scores could go up especially in higher poverty schools. Ali and Nami found between 1996 and 2015 a 1% increase in teachers' compensation in high poverty school districts led to an almost 3% increase in math proficiency tests of high school graduates.
Like the more you feel valued, always helps, right?
Wensing, who taught math in the Parma School District for more than 20 years, tells me he supports fair wages and says districts experiencing poverty who can't afford to pay their teachers more and don't get state or federal help tend to have high turnover rates.
Teachers hone their craft, they perfect their skills, they get really good at lesson planning and classroom management. And after they've done that, you become a training ground as a school district, and then they take those skills and they go elsewhere.
We've heard about the digital divide involving education and children during the pandemic, but there's another group also experiencing a communications gap. A nonprofit that works to support LGBT elders says the divide and isolation in the community was made worse over the past year and a half. Bill Meehan says the pandemic was a roller coaster that has seemingly no end.
We found that doing a lot of stuff on Zoom was really good, except that many people didn't have the ability to go on Zoom, either because of lack of equipment or because of no connectivity.
Bill hasn't had trouble with connectivity, but he knows plenty of people within his community who have.
Those that are without these social networks. One of my neighbors is 80 years old, is legally blind, and speaks limited English. She has a son that comes to visit once a week, but she is, with her two birds, that's her universe right now.
SAGE, the world's largest and oldest organization that's dedicated to improving lives of LGBT elders, is trying to lessen the digital divide.
If they're a person of color and a person of trans experience, how are they navigating through this complexity of social service? It's very complicated. And oftentimes, access to the internet is the lifesaver for so many folks.
Dr. David Vincent is Chief Program Officer for SAGE.
LGBT older people are less likely to be partnered or have children. So 3 in 4 LGBT older people are concerned about not having enough support from their families or friends. They're 4 times less likely to have children and 2 times as likely to be single and living alone.
Dr. Vincent says lately they've joined forces with the Diverse Elders Coalition. The group of 5 agencies put this proposal together to collectively call on Congress to fight the disparities faced by older adults from racially and ethnically diverse backgrounds, in addition to LGBT plus communities.
Which is really about connecting people, providing case management, providing technical assistance to aging providers in order to best serve them, providing connection through cyber education, and developing virtual programming.
As for Bill, he's excited about the SAGE Center that just opened in his building. He's started a book club and he's working within his LGBT community to alert people about the dangers of isolation.
With 15 computers. So there'll be opportunities for people who don't have connectivity, don't have computers in the building, to go there and to use a computer. And there'll be classes on how to use a computer, because for some people this will be their first introduction to electronic communications.
I'm Stephanie Stone, reporting.
If you're feeling a little under the weather this summer, you're not alone. Summer colds are popping up now that masks are coming down. Doctors say there are a handful of viruses going around since coronavirus restrictions have eased. Physicians say we typically see viruses like the common cold in the fall, but they're popping up off-season. Many health officials say they've noticed the recent rise in respiratory viruses, especially in young children. The CDC recently issued an advisory in the South due to an increase in RSV, which can be severe for babies and the elderly. Doctors say to stay healthy, it's always important to practice good hand washing and sanitizing, whether we're in the midst of a pandemic or not. Health experts say COVID-19 symptoms are often similar to those of a cold, and the best way to rule out COVID-19 infection and protect yourself from the virus is to get vaccinated.
And we'll have a chance of a few showers and thunderstorms this afternoon as temperatures climb up into the lower 90s later on. Our normal's 95, so we're still below normal, but it's still going to feel plenty warm with that humidity in place. Feel like the triple digits. Tonight, temperatures fall down to the lower 70s, and as you look at that 10-day forecast, we're going to be talking about those temperatures in the lower 90s through the weekend. We'll get up to the mid-90s Saturday and Sunday with 20% chances of rain. Then later on next week, we're tracking a cold front that's going to up our rain chances and knock our temperatures back down to the low 90s.
From anxiety to depression, kids across this country are struggling to emerge from the pandemic. So to help address lingering mental health issues, many schools are holding summer classes. In classrooms and in schools across the country, there is no